Stay tuned.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Anatomy of a Movie.
Hello, movie fans, and welcome to another episode of Anatomy of a Movie here on the Popcorn Talk Network, where, after following that maniacal laugh, we're going to be talking about, of course, Downton Abbey. That's a joke. That's a joke. The joke's on you. The joke's on me. But, yes, we are talking about... Hey! I feel like Rupert Pumpkin.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about later. So, yes, thank you for joining Anatomy of a Movie. We are today going to be talking Joker, one of the most anticipated movies of the year, going in, especially going into the awards season. I'm very pleased to have a great panel to break and dissect everything. Before I introduce you to the panel, I do want to do a major warning, a spoiler warning.
Spoiler alert!
Major spoiler alert here.
Spoiler alert!
Shields up!
Spoiler alert!
If you have not seen Joker, please put this on pause now. Go see the movie, and then come back, because this is going to be spoilerific, and that is no joke. Don't want to ruin the movie for you. We want you to go in, make up your own opinion to see the movie, but spoiler, this is not a spoiler-free zone, very spoiler-filled review and dissection, which this movie deserves, of Joker. Now, let me introduce you to the panel. Right to my immediate right, ladies first, Mina Wahab, who's no stranger to the anatomy of a movie.
I'm so excited to return after our hiatus.
Yes. This is the first time we've ever worked together.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this film and working with you some more.
Same here.
I'm Scott Menzel. You can find me on Meet the Movie Press and Film Critics Weekly. Thank you.
Okay, and again, my name is Demetri Panos, right here, Popcorn Talk Network, Anatomy of a Movie. So, we've got a lot to break down.
Yes.
There is a lot to break down about this particular movie, so we're going to get right into it. And as we always start off, we're going to go in with our opinions and reviews of the movie only. So I'm going to start off again. I always defer ladies first. Mina, what are your thoughts on Joker?
Joker was incredible, you guys. It was something that we really needed to see in this DC verse of superheroes, because it's not your typical superhero movie. It's an origin story, and what I love the most about this movie is that it really humanizes the Joker in a way that we've never seen before, and it also grapples with the main themes of dreams versus reality, much like in the movies like Inception, The Matrix. It has that theme of okay, what's going on? Is this really inside his head? Is this reality? So there was so much done in this movie that I give this movie 2 thumbs up, because it really did blow me away, especially Joaquin Phoenix's portrayal of the Joker. He just, hats off to him, because this was a chilling performance. It's so hard to have empathy for a character who's that creepy, and I had empathy for a character who also gave me chills, so... Excellent.
Yeah. This movie is something else. This is a special film, something that we have not seen from the DC universe, but also we haven't seen on the big screen in quite some time. We're going to be talking about it later, but there's so many nods to movies from the 60s, 70s, and 80s within this film. Commentary on mental health, on society, the treatment of others, treatment of poor people. And as everyone, and I will echo you and say, Joaquin Phoenix is just a force of nature in this film, and just incredible. And this is his statue. He deserves that statue for this movie. He's that great.
Oh, 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for me, Joker is DC's best movie outing since the Nolan years. And it's not a superhero movie. Not at all. It's not even, to me, it's not even an origin story. For me, this is a gritty crime drama, and it's a journey into madness that mirrors current societal dystopic events. It's dark. It's unsettling. It's nihilistic. It's the type of movies they used to make in the 70s and the very early 80s, which we're going to talk about this time period in which it's in. I agree. Like, Joaquin Phoenix's performance is the kind of performance, too, that the Academy loves. And we'll talk about its legacy and its Oscar a little bit later in the show, but everybody here seems to be in agreement. He should at the very least get a nomination, maybe walk away with the statuette, because the Academy loves transformation. And he transformed to play the role of Arthur Fleck. So we'll talk a little bit about that later. So right now I want to start talking about, I want to do a little character study about Arthur Fleck himself, played by Joaquin Phoenix. Arthur Fleck is the character, which eventually devolves into the Joker. And I want to talk about specifically his relationships throughout the entire movie. These relationships can make a person or break a person. And we're also going to talk about, and again, I have to bring up spoiler, what happens in certain relationships. And the first one I have to talk about, or I want to talk about, is Arthur Fleck's relationship with his mother, Penny Fleck. Okay. What did you think? Again, ladies first, Mina. His relationship, Arthur Fleck's relationship with Penny, his mom.
It was one of those things that when I say I have empathy for his character, I genuinely have so much empathy for Arthur Fleck, because here he is in such a horrible squalor, living in this apartment and taking care of his mother who is ill, and you can't really tell if she is psychologically unsound or if that's something that's made up. We don't know this for sure. We don't know with 100% certainty whether she is psychologically unsound, whether she really does.
We kind of do
have
find
psychosis.
out, though.
We find out a little bit, but we still don't know what's happening inside Joker's head and what is reality and if he's being lied to or if he is being told the truth about everything. But
I want to talk. Well, let's talk about this.
Let's talk about that.
And Scott, what do you think before we get, because this is a deep dive.
This is a really deep dive.
Thought process.
I mean, this is the most important relationship in the entire movie, because most of the plot, as the movie moves along, you learn more about the relationship with the mother, whether or not it ties directly to Arthur or not. It may tie to another character in the film, a character named Thomas Wayne, and
we're going to talk about
we learn a little bit about that relationship that may or may not occurred, which is, I think, a point which you're getting to, whether or not she actually had any involvement in Thomas Wayne's life, and whether they did have an affair, and whether whose kid was really, who was Arthur's father.
Right.
We never get an answer to that in this film.
No.
And that's why I think the mother storyline is so important in this movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We don't know if she's telling the truth. She's looking to Thomas Wayne as the figure that's going to save Gotham City. It's almost like the Stockholm syndrome.
She's
type
also
thing.
looking not just Gotham City, but her family.
Yeah, her family.
So, all right, so let's talk about this, because we hear it from the mother's side. She worked for the Wayne Foundation, or she worked for the Wayne family for a good handful of years. It was 30 years in the past. And, she believes that Thomas Wayne is this really nice guy. And we're going to talk a little Thomas Wayne, too, because that's something else we really do need to talk about societal dystopia. I view this as part of Arthur's spiral down. And I did, when you, there's a key moment where she's waiting for a letter from Thomas Wayne that never comes. It's almost like an unrequited love. And she goes, and she's very ill. She's on death's bed. And she writes one more letter, one last chance to get this letter out. And she even says, Arthur, it's extremely important this goes out. And before he pops it in the mailbox, he reads it. And what he takes away from it is that he is a bastard child from an illicit affair that was covered up, and it was between Thomas Wayne and Penny when she worked at the manor. And this sets Arthur off, and then he goes on his own fact-finding type of journey to figure out if this is true, to try to figure out his own identity at this point. And the way that I viewed it is as I did believe the mother was crazy. I believe that the mother was nuts, because when we meet Thomas Wayne in that theater, in the restroom, and he, basically when we see, let's back up a bit. There's this scene where Arthur goes to the Wayne Manor and he sees a little Bruce, and he does some magic with Bruce, but then he does the unholy, in which he actually physically touches him, and then Alfred, I'm assuming that was Alfred the butler, comes by, and Arthur says, "I'm Arthur Fleck, I'm Penny Fleck's son," and he goes, "Oh, you're that." Oh, so there's automatically Alfred the butler recognizes the name, recognizes who he is, and sees a problem, a major problem, grabs Bruce away, and basically Arthur runs away. And then we get to this whole, during this rally, you want to say, at this theater, this benefit that the Wayne is holding, he sneaks in, he's in the bathroom, and then we learn from Thomas Wayne, he's like, "Yeah, your mom worked for me." He goes, "We had to have her sent away. She was crazy." Like, you're adopted. He goes, "What do you mean I'm adopted?" And that whole scene to me right there, I do believe that scene happened. He got punched in the face, and he felt that. It took him out of his reverie, because he has this condition of laughing at inappropriate moments. We all laugh at inappropriate moments sometimes when people fall, right? But to me, and then he goes and he does some reconnaissance, and he goes to Arkham Hospital, and he finds records. And my whole take on it is that this is why she was crazy, is that if she was sent to Arkham by the Waynes, she wouldn't hold this love for the Waynes. If she wasn't crazy and somebody put you in an insane asylum, you'd be pretty pissed. You'd be like, "What the hell?" And you'd come out of that insane asylum probably trying to ruin those people's lives, but she didn't. She held the Waynes to the highest level of stature and savior, like almost deity-like, that he can't. If he knew where we lived, he wouldn't like this at all. And it's like, oh no, you're. To me, I looked at it as kind of, she was crazy, and that to Arthur, that was more or less it. He lost every connection and relationship to reality, to connection with human beings. If his own mother is not being truthful with him and he's teetering. See, I didn't find Arthur as sympathetic. He was already a little off. It's how this character is going to go. And this guy all he was doing is trying to look for a little empathy from somebody. And one person he thought he could guarantee get that from is his mom. And then he finds out, no, even my own mother lies to me about my life. Like, I'm adopted, and there's no relationship with the Wayne. He just punched me in the nose. The shock to the system for him, one can imagine it. It's really perfectly visualized, I thought, thematically. So what do you think about that?
I totally understand your perspective, and I think that's, one perspective of what the movie is trying to do, is trying to differentiate between reality and dreams and psychosis. And I think that it could be true that, yeah, maybe the mom is crazy. And I understand your perspective when you say, oh, how can someone love another person who put them in an insane asylum if they weren't crazy? But I don't think that that is enough justification to prove that she's crazy, just the fact that she still holds love for Bruce Wayne's father. I think that...
Do you believe that Thomas Wayne was the father? Because
I
didn't.
I don't know who the father would be, but I think there has to be something that went on in terms of like some sort of like either romantic relationship or sexual relationship. There has to be something that happened. There's no smoke without fire. So I think there has to be like some sort of morsel of truth there. And I think this movie says a lot about the voiceless and how when there is a power imbalance, you can easily be written off as crazy, thrown in an insane asylum, like nobody believes your story because of this power asymmetry. Like how many times did the victims of Harvey Weinstein feel silenced and they had no power to speak up? And now there's like this whole Me Too movement, and Gloria Allred represented so many women affected by, different white men in power who silenced the voice of women and dismissed them as crazy. So I think that's like part of what this movie says is like, oh, it's very much possible that his mom could be crazy, but it's also very much possible that she is telling the truth and that she's not lying to her son. And it's also possible
she was
that,
lying to her son. Let's be honest.
It's also possible that she is telling the truth to her son in what she believes to be the truth, even if it is the lie. Right. So maybe she believes in the lie.
That's something that's crazy.
That's mental illness.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just, I'm not made. That's still crazy. But again, she did lie to the son.
But we don't know who Joker's father is.
You don't know who.
We don't know.
Again, so then you don't believe that Thomas Wayne is the dad.
He could be,
though.
Yeah,
but you don't.
Again, it could be Alfred. Think of it. Think of it. It could be Alfred. It really could
be anybody.
But here's the thing.
It could be anyone. There's no reason that someone Bruce, like that whole dynamic with the butler being so scared of this person, that could just be orders or like a directive that was given to him. Hey, if Joker ever comes into the picture, if this person ever comes in, run because they're crazy.
No, I mean, but they would know the son. Okay, unless he came out and said, I am Penny Fleck's son. To me, again, when you're working, if she was working in Wayne Manor, right, okay, so there might be a lot of people there, but if somebody goes crazy in there and they're a little bit off, even let's put it to you this way, and we're going to talk about his work relationship, the people that Arthur worked with, his boss even said, the other coworkers are a little bit afraid of you. Like, you're a little bit off.
He is off, but that doesn't mean that his version of reality doesn't have merit.
What I'm getting at is, if she's off, her coworkers are going to know about it. They're going to know that she's a little off. Like you don't stand out being crazy. Like, she stood out, and there was something going on that they had to put her away, and she was put away. I didn't see the documents for however many years. She was put away.
But what I think she's trying to say, and what I kind of take away from the film is, you can believe the movie doesn't give you any clear answers, and it leaves it all up for discussion and interpretation. So therefore, when you see the documentation that is ultimately given, knowing that a person who has power, who has money, has the potential of being able to forge materials to cover something up. We've seen this happen so many times before. And considering that the vision of his mom when he's reading the materials is coming from his own perspective in his mind, and he's already a little cuckoo upstairs, you therefore don't know if his thoughts in that moment are what he's envisioning or what really happened. So therefore, you both have valid points, and that's what's really up for discussion, because she can be right and you can be right. Because that's the great thing about this movie, and that's why I think this character is such the important figure of this movie, because it really comes back to whether or not the mom is lying to him, whether, like she's saying, is it in her head and she thinks she's doing the right thing, or is it someone of a higher power who's really a douchebag, who has really have taken control of the situation and made this person feel this way. And we have this battered wife syndrome, right?
Sure.
Like where
like Stockholm syndrome,
right, exactly.
Essentially.
Someone could be beaten and says, "Oh, I love you. It's okay."
Right.
And the thing is that you get, and that's becomes a form of mental illness in
Absolutely.
a way too.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
there's that relationship to me, even seeing it multiple times, is not 100% clear. Right. I don't know. I'm still not 100% sold that she was, in fact, crazy and she was lying to him.
Yeah.
Or if that was really her truth, or whether it was the truth.
Yeah.
And that someone still covered it up.
And also playing on the fact that we don't know for sure if he is adopted, even if the papers are there. Because remember, there was that flashback where she's being forced to sign something, but you don't know if that's in her head or if it's reality, and you don't know, because of the power imbalance, what Bruce Wayne's father is able to do with the mansion that he lives in, with the state of how Gotham City is. I mean, in every portrayal of Batman and the Joker, Bruce Wayne's father is portrayed as like this very charitable figure. Mm-hmm. But this movie is different because it is being told from Joker's perspective, that we really don't know the reality.
But a lot of it isn't told for. I mean, yes, it's Joker, but there are scenes though. I mean, they do change the character of Wayne's. We're going to get to the Wayne's in a little bit, and I do want to say this one thing though. Again, the other key to me was the administrative guy at Arkham Hospital, mm-hmm. and that, he gets it, he's reading it, and then he looks up, he goes, "Wait, you're the son?" He goes, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
And so that's the second person who goes, "Oh, you're the son, okay. You know what? You need to go."
But here's the other thing, though,
you
right?
You need to go.
If we can both agree that the mother and the son is off in some sort of way, we don't know if the mother's mental illness, if she even has one, we don't know if it's biological or if it was nurtured by an abusive relationship. Mm-hmm. Therefore, we don't know if her son, the way mental illness works, especially if it's something like schizophrenia, mm-hmm. for instance, you have a higher percentage of having mental illness if you have someone in your family who has mental illness.
Right.
So if it's factually accurate that she does indeed have mental illness and her diagnosis of psychosis is correct, there's a high likelihood that her son would also have it. But that would also make it that her son is her biological son and, mm-hmm. in fact, not her adoptive son. And that would change the course of the entire story to show that part of her story is factually correct.
They did go out of its way to say he was abused. Horribly.
You can have both, though. You can have mental illness and be abused, though. They don't have to be mutually exclusive.
But the type of abuse that he had could make, and there was no
trauma.
But there was no. See, there was again, going back to her point, within Wayne Manor at the time, mm-hmm. you don't know if it was people within that where they abused her. You don't this is, and there's a reason.
Him.
No, I know that, but what I'm saying is, if he's there and they say in that statement he was abused multiple times, how do you know it wasn't by people that Wayne knew? Mm-hmm. How do you know that it wasn't that she was passed around? I mean, we've seen so many things like this, where a woman is passed around in a higher executive office because of being attractive and stuff like that. Right. Which I think is why it was so important to show the younger version, to see she was really attractive kind of thing too,
mm-hmm.
right?
Because that could add into it.
And it took place in the 70s.
Right, and it took in the 70s. And that's why I think it's so important to go back to the fact that Brian Tyree Henry's character basically looked at the paperwork, but he said, I didn't work here, I don't know this. And in that time, we weren't used to things being exposed for fraud and for being forged.
Right.
So there's just, I don't know, there's so much that can be said. And to her point about mental illness, Todd Phillips and Scott Silver made it a priority to not make it about one type of mental illness. Right. There was no mention of schizophrenia or anything like that. So by not giving it a definition, as she said, it could be so many different things.
Right.
So you don't know what the takeaway was, what he was really suffering from.
Right.
And they made that a priority not to define it.
And also, everything that he could have inherently could be compounded by his environment. Like, the entire movie is about the unraveling of Arthur Fleck's character, so that we see the transition from Arthur Fleck to the Joker, so that, not just so that we have empathy towards it. I mean, we can have whatever reaction we want to it. Some of us may feel empathy, some of us may feel shock and horror. We all might have different reactions and interpretations to the events. But the point is that this character, Arthur Fleck, obviously is not part of the norm in society. He's an outcast, he's misunderstood, and he's not being treated the way other people in society are. Not just because of his socioeconomic status, but also his personality, his awkwardness, his inability to socialize properly with people. And on top of that, we see beating after beating. So not only was he apparently abused early in his life as a child, he was also abused in the very beginning of the movie and beat up with the sign that he was carrying when he was dressed up as a clown. And then he faced more and more of this as the story progresses. And then he's being given a gun and being given all these props when he's not in the mental condition to be able to do these things. And we realize with his character that all he really wants, not to simplify this in any sort of way, but he wants love. And that is demonstrated in the reveries that he has when he daydreams about the neighbor. And
don't get ahead.
Not to spoil anything,
you know, I don't want to get ahead of things. I just want to stay right now with the mom.
That's what's going on.
No, but we just talked a lot about stuff, but I wanted to stay again. I think, and when you see the movie, or if you've seen the movie, what are your thoughts on the mom? Again, my thought is that's part of his de-evolution, like that it is like
I don't disagree with you on that factor. I think it's definitely the turning point, because he believes, I think, and that's maybe where the disconnect is, he believes that she lied to him,
right?
And that's something happens, and that's the reason why it happens,
right?
But what she's saying is that there's still this gray area where you don't really know 100%.
Yeah.
Because it's not told from her perspective what really happened.
Yeah.
There's that gap where it's not really a focus from her. We get it from Thomas Wayne's perspective.
Yep.
We get it from the guy who gives the paperwork, and Arthur can reflect on what he thinks happens.
Well,
but we never see a flashback from her perspective.
But her perspective, because we don't need to. She tells what her perspective is right from the get-go.
Yeah.
I love Thomas Wayne. If he knew where I was right now, he would get us out of here. He wouldn't be happy right now. We know her perspective. She loves the Wayne family. She loves Thomas Wayne. She believes that he's going to be the savior of Gotham City. In fact, she is the perspective that we've been given as followers, whether you read the comics or not, of like looking at Thomas Wayne really being the guy. He's the guy that young Bruce Wayne wanted to aspire to be, to give back to Gotham. It's part of the reason, not because his parents were killed in front of him, but he wanted to be a better man. So for me, we do get her perspective in whatever state of mind she's in. I think that is the most fascinating part. Arthur ends up seeing it as another deception from another person. So, yeah, I really, again, this is one of the aspects of this movie that I love so much, is because of this type of discussion. What ends up being real? Like, do you believe the mother? I mean, obviously the mother, the facts we know is the mother worked there. Mm-hmm. We know that, right? We know that the mother was in Arkham Hospital. We know that the mother is sick. We know that Arthur takes care of his mom.
But what her point was is that if she was crazy and he was adopted, that throws a whole wrench into the situation.
How so?
Because that means that a crazy woman would have had to adopt a crazy kid. Mm-hmm. Which is just seems coincidence. Yeah, well, which is such a weird coincidence.
It couldn't be nature versus nurture. I mean, if this kid was being abused as a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, he's being chained to a hot radiator. That's how he was found. This is what was in the notes. That this was all in there, and Thomas Wayne knew that. He goes, "You're not my son."
But what happens if maybe Thomas Wayne, maybe Arthur Fleck was actually the kid of Thomas Wayne.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that he abused both of them and caused them to go in the nut.
That's literally what I'm thinking, is that there is a possibility that at one point, Thomas Wayne might have been amazing
Right.
to, Arthur Fleck's mother. He might have been amazing. He might have told her, I love you, I'm in love with you, this. Then he has a kid with someone else from a higher socioeconomic status, has this whole life that he wants to preserve, wants to run for mayor, is part of the elite. Why would he be with Arthur Fleck's mom when he has a different type of life?
I don't know. It's like ask Arnold Schwarzenegger.
But that's like every politician that has someone on the side, has a mistress on the side, and wants to pay them money or hush them up or make them sound crazy so that they can go on and live the life that they really want to live while having this mistress on the side. That is very much a possibility with what happened. And the fact that she still loves him could be because she only remembers the good. She only remembers when he was good to her. And also, when you have trauma, any sort of like PTSD or trauma, your memory of events is very fuzzy, where you can block out negative and only remember the positive. You can go...
I don't know if you're going to block out an entire stay at Arkham Asylum or Arkham Hospital, as it's put in this movie. But I want to move on to the neighbor, because, again, I do think that the mother, to your point, Scott, is the most important relationship. I think the second most important is the neighbor. The neighbor lives a few doors down from Arthur and his mom. Right now I forget Zazie Beetz, but I forget the character's name.
I have it up here. Sophie Demens. Yeah.
So Sophie and her daughter, who also live in this decrepit apartment building, they meet in the elevator, and they have an interesting communication, so to speak. She's having a rough day, and as some people might do, she puts the gun to her head. It's the Travis Bickle. Like, that's why I do believe that Arthur Fleck is a modern day Travis Bickle, but she does this, and he looks at it as comedy. Like, Arthur's view of this is like, oh yeah, I get that. That's sort of funny. And when he's walking down the hall, he's like, hey, and he does it with a little more flair. She's like, yeah, okay. But he follows her, let's say the next day, and later in the movie, she comes knocking on the door to address it, and they begin to have a bit of a relationship. And a seemingly nice relationship. She was understanding. He invited her to his comedy show, and she seemed to kind of get it. She was laughing. She was having a good time. She was there when the mother had to go to the hospital. She was there to console him. But then we find out, and again, spoiler.
Oh my God, I'm getting chills. I'm literally getting chills.
And again, there was no, and seeing the movie twice too, there were no clues to the fact that relationship never existed. You find out it never existed. The character existed, and the way we found out was horrifying.
Oh my gosh.
Horrifying. So that was a crazy relationship, in a sense.
Yeah. And
that's when you start going, that's when you question reality. Like, what is going on here? When he, after his rough day, into Sophie's thing too, it's pouring out. He goes into their house or their apartment. He sits down. She comes out of her daughter's bedroom and she's shocked. They're like, "What are you doing here? You're in the wrong apartment." He said, "I just had a really bad day." And she turns into, "Well, is there anybody we can call? Like, what can we do?" She goes into a sweet mode, like a helpful, like
very nurturing motherly.
It was actually, to me, I found it to be kind of sweet. And then they sort of zoom in to Arthur Fleck, and then the next scene we see Arthur Fleck walking out of the apartment. Now, are they alive?
Yeah, they're alive.
Are they? Because we never see them again. How do you know?
I feel like they are alive. I mean, he was triggered because she said, "Can we call your mother?" And that was at the point that the mother was not there anymore.
Right.
So that his whole world fell apart. The fact that the number one relationship, we all agreed on this panel, his relationship to his mother.
Right.
That's no longer happening. The second most important relationship that you said was his relationship to this neighbor. that's also not real, and his entire world unravels, and now he has to go back to his empty apartment and crawl into his refrigerator.
But how do you know they're alive?
We don't know, but it was never hinted that he did anything violent towards them.
You don't know.
You don't know, but there's no reason to believe that he did either, though.
Why? He broke into their apartment. I mean, you don't know.
Well,
I mean, because this was also the beginning of, this was the beginning of his
breakdown,
turn.
yeah.
Like, this was like not just what happened on the train earlier, right? Which was, you could say that started everything. But this is the beginning of his unraveling. This is the beginning of the death of Arthur Fleck.
You would think that if he did do that, that from an objective, like omniscient point of view, whatever the narrator's point of view in the story is, that it would pan to some sort of image of them in distress or dead on the floor. And the movie didn't do that, even though it did it in other scenarios.
But again, if you're questioning reality,
it's a possibility. I can't say it's not true, but I can. In that case, I can bring up anything as being implausible or crazy.
But we just did with the
mom.
mom.
Yeah.
And so, again, it's like, are they alive or are they dead?
Yeah.
I mean, you just don't know. We never see them again. Like, never see them
probably
again.
just extremely traumatized.
I also think that they're still alive, and the reason why is because in a scene that happens a few moments after that, there is two gentlemen from the club that he used, the job place, Ha-Ha's, where he works at, and one of those people do get killed and the other person does not. And as the one gentleman is leaving, he says, "You were the only one who was nice to me."
I want to talk about that too.
Kisses him on the head. But going back to her point about why I feel that she didn't, is that in his mind throughout this movie, that is ultimately, you made up this wonderful statement about love, and that's his whole purpose, was that he was looking to find love, and he made up this relationship with this character, hoping that he would find love, and this was his definition of what he wanted out of life, and this is really all he wanted. He wanted someone to come home to who would comfort him on a bad day.
Sweet.
And it was sweet. Creepy a little bit, and you can tell something was off when the scene in the movie where he follows her, and then she comes back to the door, and then she opens the door and she's like, "Did you follow me the other day?" And then it's just like she's kind of like cool with it, and you're like, okay, she can't be crazy too. Like, everyone in this movie can't be crazy, right. So there's got to be something going on with this.
And for one moment, Arthur seemed comfortable.
Right.
For one moment, because he told the truth. And then she said, "Well, I was kind of hoping you would come back and rob the bank." And for one moment, he was actually funny when he said, "Well, I got a gun. I can come back tomorrow."
Right.
And that's actually very funny.
Yeah.
That was like the one time where his comedy worked, and she cracked a smile.
Yeah.
Like, that was a very sweet moment. And you're like, oh.
I don't think that moment happened.
It didn't.
I don't think any of it happened besides the elevator scene in the beginning,
and him stalking her
and him stalking her,
and but she never confronted him about the stalking. He just had this fixation with her. But I have a hot take, you guys, and this is really this is really important, because building on the concept of, he wasn't loved, and this is something that was a void in his life that he always wanted, and it's mirrored in how his brain and his mind drifts off in these daydreams where he just wants to be loved. Like, I think the key thing that we're forgetting is that Arthur Fleck, all he wanted to do other than be loved was love other people and entertain them. And it's shown in his dreams where he's like, my mom said that my purpose is to bring joy and laughter to everyone. And that's when he puts on the clown mask, he wants to make people happy. He is the most himself and in his element when he's dancing, when he's trying to make people happy, when people are receptive to him, because that is the crux of human connection. And the fact that all he wanted to do was entertain and bring joy to other people, and also feel that joy in return, is just at the core of our humanity as people.
He just wanted to make people smile.
Yeah.
That was his highest. That was about as high as his ambitions went.
Yeah.
But the world beat him down for it.
No,
right.
Society. No, absolutely. We'll get into that, but no, absolutely. But again, the man was a little off to begin with, but all he tried to do is, that was about as high as his ambitions went.
All I'm saying with the neighbor character is that the reason why I don't think anything happened to her is because she was never mean to him.
Right.
And he showed this pattern, although it was only once, someone who wasn't mean to him didn't end up in the wrath.
And so the can I call your mom? Can I call your what might have been
was
her
that kindness
grace.
that he was like looking for, and that he kind of walked out. There was no scene in that, like at the end of the movie, it's left up to interpretation. I know we're going off topic, where like something happens with one of the other characters and you see blood on the floor.
Sure.
With this case scenario, he walks out, you see him walking out of there.
Right.
There's no blood at all.
Right.
So that's why I agree with her that I do think that she's still alive.
Very good
And he's
points.
always taking care of other, like he's taking care of his mom in the movie.
Right.
He's trying to bring joy. It's not about just like the fame. It's about being
And he never
recognized.
takes violence towards women either.
No.
In most of the movie,
I
it's
enjoyed
always
that.
it was always towards men.
And the times that he
Yes.
is violent, do you realize that the times that he is violent is when it's in self-defense?
Yes, that's I mean, that's another
Come on.
factor.
That's why I'm so upset at I just feel so upset and heated because I feel like, the people, the reactions to the Joker and how he's just like gone crazy and devolved. Like, yeah, that is true to a certain extent, but look at the events leading up to that and how he was so kind in so many instances when he tries to like how do people respond to his kindness? Like when he's interacting with future Batman and he's doing a magic trick and people are like, "Oh, you freak."
Yeah, but okay.
You know what I mean?
But he did if you're a mom and some stranger came up to your kid and starts doing this, please, like, let's not.
You're right.
Let's not. The only thing
But you
I'll give
understand
you.
what I'm saying.
No, I do. The only
So
he's
funny.
off. Yeah, you tell me as a mom that you would be okay with that. So I understand.
You're right.
Again, I understood Thomas Wayne's fear. And the thing, like, you ever lay a hand on my son again, I'll fucking kill you, he says. And he walks out. But I want to go back again to the neighbor. I agree with your point, too, with she, like, at first was, what are you doing in my apartment? You're Arthur. But for the audience, you're like, what the? Oh, my God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But when he says, I had a really bad day, and she all of a sudden softens and says, and then he walks out. So I want to go, we're going to go back to the therapist, but I want to talk about his relationship with boss and coworkers since we brought up. That's when he really goes off the rails.
Yes.
And then we have Jerry, the little man. And so there was the gentleman at the beginning of the movie after he got beat with his own sign. The next day, he's like, hey, man, you got to protect yourself. He goes, here. And he gives him a gun. And he goes, don't worry, it's just between us. And when in the hospital scene, when he's doing the song and dance and he's very happy, everybody's smiling, laughing. It's all obviously a children's ward and they were very sick. And then the gun falls out. You're like, oh, shit. And, he picked it up. And then his boss pretty much fires him. What do you have a gun for? And I think it was Ray, might have been that character's name. Yeah. And he's like, yeah. He goes, well, he told me a week ago you were trying to buy a gun off him. One other person just lying to him and actually like just turning him over. Yeah. Right. So when they come over, and it was very interesting because they come over to the house, and you think, well, the premise is, we heard your mom died. We wanted to come over, maybe have some drinks with you. The brown paper bag. And then I should look up his name. I don't want to misquote that character's name, but he says, "Oh yeah, man, and these detectives have been coming around and they've been asking us a lot of questions." And even Jerry, the little man, says, nobody ever talked to me. And he's like, again, it's because you're not a normal size. So like Jerry had no idea what's going on. Mm-hmm. And then he goes to Arthur. So Arthur, what did you tell these guys? I want to make sure our story's lined up. And Arthur's already wise to him because he already sold him down the river twice. And that is right there probably the most violent death in the movie.
Yes.
I mean, there's been shooting.
Yeah.
There was more shooting to come, but that was by far. Scissors in the throat and then in the eye socket.
No.
And then he pushed it in up against the thing, and poor Jerry. And then the biggest joke.
Funniest scene in the movie.
People were cracking, but again,
so dark.
think about this though. This is the punchline that the Joker gets. There's a little guy. I told him to leave. He can't leave because he can't reach the latch. Like the Joker would find this hysterical, and he did.
Right.
And the audience does too. So for that moment, again, we all laugh at other people's discomfort. And when things go awry, somebody trips on a crack in the street, you'll go, oh my God, that was, and then you might want to get, most of us will also go, hey, can I help you get up? But we've all done it. When Jerry can't reach that, not only is it's laughable, but it's horrific.
Yeah.
And when he goes, sure, because just a second before when he was walking by, Arthur's like, ah! And he scares the shit out of the audience and of poor Jerry. He comes over, he opened the door, and then he shuts it.
Yeah.
And then he says, to me, this is the most tenderest of real relationships. When he says, Jerry, you're the only person that treated me right. That's why I'm letting you go. And he kisses him on the forehead. He opens the door.
Sweet.
And Jerry's like, feet don't fail me now. Let me get out of here. But to me, that was the tenderest relationship that Arthur had. And it was true. And you felt for Jerry. You laughed. That is a crazy scene. His boss sells him down the river. And again, to all of our points from earlier on, none of this was necessarily of Arthur's fault. These ruffians steal his board. They beat the shit out of him with his own board. They crack it in his face, not just his head, his face. It cracks. And then when Arthur's telling the truth and the boss is like, you need to give that board back, and he'd go, why would I keep that board?
Right.
He goes, why would I keep it? And here's the line, though, that I think that from societal dystopia, how the hell do I know why people do anything in this world? How the hell do I know that? And you go, well, it's kind of true, but we as an audience just saw what happened. And you kind of like, all right, so my boss doesn't believe me. My boss is a jerk. And then he ends up getting fired. And again, I thought it was funny. Oh yeah, I forgot to punch out. And he punches the punch clock.
Yeah.
So he had this weird relationship with work, but the only person in that workplace was little Jerry. And which is very, very nice relationship.
It's so endearing.
I want to go talk about the therapist because
I do think you missed a big factor of
which one
of those characters.
Okay,
because
please
you brought it up earlier.
Yeah,
is
Murray?
that he gets, it's Murray, right?
So
Murray?
Robert De Niro plays Murray Franklin.
Oh no.
Which one?
So I was talking about the co-worker there who actually gives him the gun. That is the biggest plot point of this movie, and one that I think is being ignored by most reviews who are trying to say something about this being violent.
All right, please, go ahead. Let's tackle it.
So in reality, we don't know anything about this guy, but he works at the same place where Arthur Fleck works, and he too seems like he's a down on his luck kind of guy. He doesn't seem very happy. He seems kind of miserable. And he hands this guy, this mentally disabled person, whatever he has, we don't know, a gun. That, to me, in itself speaks volumes about the problem that we have, whether this movie is taking place in the 80s or now, about how easy it is for someone to get a gun. And how...
nothing has changed.
And nothing has
changed.
And how, by him getting that gun, and that person just rightfully giving him one, knowing that he is incapable of doing a simple task without something happening to him.
Right.
He takes no care or worry in what he has just done.
No, he doesn't.
And therefore, when the violence starts happening, in a weird way, it's only because he is given that device from someone else. It's not that he's sitting there in the middle of getting beat up and starts fighting back or anything like that, or like takes out a knife and starts stabbing people, or goes to a gun shop and buys a gun. He was given a gun.
True.
And he uses it, as you said, as a form of self-defense.
Right.
And another thing that people don't point out in that scene is that if he didn't start laughing like he did, there's a woman in that scene.
We're talking. We're talking the scene in the train.
Scene in the
with
train
the 3 yuppies.
Yeah.
The 3 Wall Street people.
And they're harassing her, and you don't know what's going to happen because it seems like it's going some way. And then he starts laughing, and he takes, again, like you said, just want to be caring, loving.
Right.
He's trying to help her out by becoming a distraction for her.
See, you think
I thought
okay.
that was accidental.
See, I
when
thought
he
it was
started
accidental
laughing.
too.
Because you know how it's
I
an
thought it was
uncontrollable fit of laughter.
I thought it was.
I didn't know he was. I thought that he was clearly affected by what was happening and upset, but that he couldn't react to it the way he wanted to, and that's why he had the uncontrollable
In all
fit.
honesty, that's the way I looked at it too. Because I looked at it as he was laughing inappropriately, and that he couldn't. It sounded like that laugh, and that he did inadvertently save that woman. That's for sure, because she
and I
got
don't
up
know. I don't know for sure, but giving the female relationships in the film and how he seemed to value them so much more.
Right.
Besides the one lady on the bus, but again, the one lady in the bus, and nothing happened to her. He just kind of like was upset that she couldn't appreciate
in the car.
I know.
Even when she was rude, he still didn't do
exactly.
anything.
That was the thing where he tried to explain. Yeah.
But again, let's go from bus to train. Wait, first on who's now on the boards over there? Ryan, is it you?
Nobody's there.
Jeff is here.
Oh, hey, Jeff. Jeff,
how much time
do we got? Because
there's so much to dissect.
There's so much to talk about on this movie right now.
Let's do 10 more minutes, guys.
Okay.
10 more minutes? That's all we got?
Well, I say we just stay on the characters then. That's what I think was important. But, what were you going to say about this thing? I just think that all the female characters...
All I'm saying is that, like, this is So the bus, right? Yeah. This was, we saw what he was doing. He was making the kid laugh. Don't bother my son. Leave my son alone. That's extraordinarily rude. He starts to laugh. We know he's a little off, but I think, too, this is part of his downward spiral. This is part of his de-evolution where he's trying to do the good thing. It doesn't happen. Then we have the scene in the train, right? And we see what's happening. He starts to laugh. She is able to escape. She's able to escape, and then it becomes like Death Wish. It becomes like that scene in Death Wish. He shoots the 2 people. He shoots 2 people, kills them right on the train, and then the third he kills on the steps. And it's this. That's the spark. That's the spark. And we haven't even been able to talk about societal dystopia, but that's the spark that begins the wave of the have-nots, who are like trying to rise up, trying to resist the haves, the Thomas Waynes of the world, who calls them clowns. Because, he's like, well, they're all clowns. They're all a bunch of clowns. They're lower than me. And so, he wasn't going to kill the mom. Like, he wasn't at that state yet. Had this happened later in the movie, he might have been, oh, son, turn your eyes, and then he would have stabbed her in the eyes.
Right.
And he was still passing out the card about, but we see this card throughout the movie, even the detectives and the detective questions about it. So I found that to be, extraordinarily, it's just fascinating that he has the disabled card, like, hi, I'm deaf, or hi, I can't do this, and this is the I laugh uncontrollably. It's a symptom. So, and they even say, "Is this a real thing?"
It is.
No.
Yeah.
I was talking like through the detectives saying, oh, "I laugh at the wrong time all the time," but he basically, the detective was like, "Is this a put on?" He goes, what did he say? He said something like very flip. He goes, well, that's for you to find out, or something. Then he turns around and he walks into the exit door,
right?
Which was funny. But again, that's funny. He walked
physical
into
comedy.
He didn't mean to do it, but again, if you you laugh because he's like, that's the exit. He's like, oh yeah, and he goes in. So I just think that the violence starts. We know that shooting was a spark that started this wave. We know Thomas Wayne calls them all clowns, right? And then, and the next day when he's doing a press conference, it specifically said in the newscaster was like, yeah, he took didn't even attempt an apology. What else do we know from a man in politics who has no attempt to ever apologize for anything nasty or rude that he says? I mean, I thought that was a very telling dichotomy with that. So, yeah, the Waynes were depicted quite differently in this movie than we ever have seen before. We talked about the relationship with reality. This relationship with reality is fascinating in this movie, and I think it's something to be studied later on in psychosis, mental illness. The girlfriend, obviously, the mom, people can debate forever, but I think that's what makes this movie great. Mm-hmm. I did really want to talk about why this movie was filmed in the 80s or 1981. Mm-hmm. Because I do believe that. I think it's a perfect time. It was a perfect time in society. 1981 is the middle of a transition that the whole country was going through. And again, going to what this movie is modeled after. In the 70s, there was a lot of anger, and the movies reflected that anger. And a lot of the movies did not end on happy, people weren't feeling good, and their movies were reflective of people not feeling good. Taxi Driver being one of them. Network being a satire, not being one of them, but about a ratings-getting news person who ends up getting assassinated on live TV. Mm-hmm. So I think that 1981 was a perfect mirror to set up to our society because people are angry. I loved how they kept on saying the anger builds, and I loved how Arthur Fleck's disposition changed the angrier that Gotham City became. Mm-hmm. And it became super rats. It was falling into decay. Mm-hmm. As was Arthur Fleck's psychosis, as his mind was losing it. So, and those movies in the 70s were violent movies. Taxi Driver, like I said, Travis Bickle, this whole thing, Travis Bickle's reality is always questioned from that movie from Scorsese, but the other movie, The King of Comedy, which came out in 1983, another Scorsese movie, it was almost as if this movie were built or filmed in a Scorsese universe, where Rupert Pupkin believed he was a funny comedian, but it was all in his head, and he ends up kidnapping the late night talk show host Jerry Lewis. But in this movie, we have Arthur Fleck doing the same thing. He's his reality of it all. And again, he wanted a father figure. Mm-hmm. And how does he imagine him going, God, I would give all this up to have a son like you. Yeah. To have a person like you.
That was heartbreaking.
It was like, well, but he loved, it was so, that's why I personally love that it was set here, and I do believe it makes it timeless, because if it was set today, I think it's too easy to point out,
social media.
I want to talk social media for a second too. The television set, television in the 70s and in the 80s, millions upon millions of viewers and ratings. Mm-hmm. As big as Big Bang Theory is, people say it's really huge, a lot of ratings. Never as big as MASH, which is in the 70s. Or All in the Family, which is a satire of the social economics and race. That was, Scott, you had said it earlier, that was YouTube. Yeah. That's where people got. So when Maury shows the video of Arthur, that's symbolic of, that's a viral video. Mm-hmm. That is a viral video that he's showing to millions of people across the country, because this is the highest rated, it's the Tonight Show. Mm-hmm. And the use of that I thought was brilliant. You guys?
Do you want to say something about this first?
Okay, go ahead. I'll follow you.
All right. So, to me, I think that's that's a key scene, another key moment in the movie because it happens twice, right? You have the first scene where he's watching it with his mom. He's feeling comfortable, right? He's in his comfort zone. He's at home, laying in bed with his mom, watching the TV, watching his idol. His idol. That's what I take this as. Someone who he wants to be a comedian. He wants to be loved by people because that's the viewpoint that he has. And so he sees himself in the audience, basically standing up, and people at first around him start mocking him, and then he's like, no, give him a chance. And there's this nice level of humanity there, right? Where this guy who's the funny guy, who's the idol, steps forward and says, you know what, you're just a regular guy, but I want to bring you up to his spotlight because I can see deep down you're a good person. So he brings him into the spotlight, and he has this dream image of what this is going to be. And then when he finally gets his day and he gets to see himself on the Murray Show, right. He gets to see that they show his clip, and at first he's so excited. He's like, "Oh my God, this is my moment. This is my idol. My idol seeing me. He's gonna launch my career. He's gonna make all this sadness that I'm feeling right now is gonna turn into joy because I'm gonna finally get my breakthrough." And then he watches it. He's happy, and then all of a sudden he starts seeing the person that he worshipped also mocking him. Mm-hmm. Right. And then that person, because of like what we would do today and how we know because of viral videos with YouTube and things like that, because it became such a big thing, and people love when you mock other people and when people fall down. That's why we love celebrity culture, right? We love celebrities, but we love them even more when they do something that they fuck up, right? Kim Kardashian gets in a car crash. Oh my God, let's talk about it. What was she? Was she drinking? Was she doing this? What was going on? Whatever happens, we love poking fun at that. So therefore, in that time, in the 70s, you didn't have social media.
No.
And you had the television set.
Yes.
And the ratings went up. And therefore, they bring him in. And he makes this key point, you called me Joker, you call me Joker on this show. And then he gets what he has coming. And keep in mind, once again, I want to reiterate this point. At no point in this movie does Arthur Fleck or the character Joker ever kill someone who has not done something bad to him.
Correct.
Ever. He only takes out. He doesn't take it out on the audience. He doesn't take it out on the guests. No one. Takes it out on him. And he says this really great speech, which I love so much.
Oh, that's my favorite part of this entire movie.
And he goes into it, and he says, you just brought me on here to make fun of me.
He says, and it starts off with, like, you're a horrible person, too. And he's like, I'm horrible. Why am I horrible? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, the people around him are kind of obtuse to the way that they treat other people. But I'm sorry.
But no, but I'm just saying, it's like, and that's where that point where you really learn. And then, like, he even tries to act like he's the innocent bystander in here, completely ignoring the fact that he's guilty of something, which I thought was interesting. He's like, "Oh, you're so filled with self-guilt. Like all the guilt is like killing me." And he's like, "It's like, dude, you're a dick. You did this to him too." But
and then the thing that he said that I loved the most was he said, all of you guys are so mad at me for killing those 3 people.
Oh, yeah.
If I were on the floor and struggling, no one would bat a single eyelash. You would walk right over me. That right there summed up the entire movie as nobody recognizes me. Everyone hates me for doing this to these people, but what about me? What about the voiceless? And that right there, I thought was one of the most powerful scenes of that entire movie.
And prior to that happening too, I call it, like, when he was prepping to go onto the show, he did the whole practicing routine, but then he did the knock knock joke, and he faux shot himself in the head, and he played dead. To me, on the Blu-ray, that chapter should be called "That's the Death of Arthur Fleck." In his mind, he had just killed Arthur Fleck, and that's when he tells, "I want to be called Joker." And more telling in that scene when he says that, he goes, "Why do you want Joker?" He goes, "Well, that's what you called me." He goes, "I called you that? Really?" He goes, "Did I call him that?" And he's like, "I don't know." And he's like, Arthur remembers, Joker remembers. And that's part of the Joker character right there. Look, I think we may have to do a part 2 on this.
We definitely have to do a part 2.
There's we never discussed the controversy.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to schedule a part 2 at some point with this panel because, look, I think what I love about all of you for being here is your passion for this movie.
Yes.
No, well,
We're so passionate.
I love this because we all love this movie. The reviews on it have been extraordinarily mixed. To some people, actually calling this hollow, and I don't know what movie they watched. We don't agree with this, but I want to discuss the violence in this movie. I want to discuss the history of Joker, the Oscar. We never got to talk about Academy run, all of these things. So we may have to come back at some point and do a part 2 to finish this up. And maybe when we do it, it'll be... a lot of people have seen it then.
Yeah, it's already breaking records right now for the month of October.
So if people have seen it, they'll come back, maybe watch one, and we'll try to schedule a part 2 for next week, I think, because I think that the movie... There aren't a lot of movies that warrant this kind of a discussion, I believe. And when it does, and we're so passionate about it, we need to carry it on. Unfortunately, we do have time constraints, so I apologize about that. So hopefully you enjoyed what we were able to give you. I will talk to the powers that be. We will set up a part 2 to finish this, to put this all together. So it'll be Joker Part 1, Joker Part 2, and then we'll edit it together like a big Quentin Tarantino thing. And it'll end up being longer than the movie, but I think it deserves discussion. Mina, thank you very much. Please tell us, where can people find you?
You guys can find me on Instagram at Mina Makes Magic, or you can go to my website at minawahab.com. It's been such a pleasure talking about the Joker.
Awesome.
And his character arc in this movie. So everyone check out Joker this weekend.
Yeah. I'm Scott Menzel. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at @theotherscottm, or you can go to weliveentertainment.com.
And you can find me here on the Popcorn Talk Network's Anatomy of a Movie. We will be back with some more movies, and I really want to do a part 2 of the Joker, just because I just feel the need that we need to get this out. We need to get this out of our system, and I think after watching it, you've already seen it if you're tuning in live, but if you haven't, please tune us in. I will do my best to get us a part 2 next week. Thank you very much for watching. At Demetri Panos is my Twitter account. And again, go to the movies. We'll see you at the movies. Thank you so much for tuning us in. I know we went a little bit longer than necessary, but I believe the discussion was worth it. And we thank you very much for coming along for the ride and listening. We hope, please, comment on YouTube. Let us know your thoughts, because this movie is very open to interpretation, as we proved right here. That's what makes talking about movies so much fun. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. See you at the movies.
See ya.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.